So now what I want to do is, I think this is a great transition. So the first validator workshop that we hosted was something like, with 3.5 hours, we went from bare metal server or a new machine and spun it up on a test net. The videos that I followed using Samara's guide, it was just a quick and dirty, like get you up and running. Those unedited, I think, were maybe 45 minutes. We want to make those things simpler for newcomers into the scene, and we want to make them quicker. And that is exactly what Colfax and Remy have been working on in terms of tooling for making and lowering the bar to enter into the solo staking scene. And it's something incredible what the two of them together have produced. And it's honestly, I'm convinced it's one of the reasons why their Gitcoin grant was so successful this round, and why the reception for the product itself has been welcomed, because it drastically simplifies the process and makes it easier for non-technical users, or maybe someone that just really isn't comfortable or willing to work with the command line. So what I'd like to do first, Colfax, if you want to share your screen and kind of showcase exactly what you've been working on and walk us through the whole thing.
Sounds good. I'll pull it up right now. Thanks for the intro. Let's see here. Good to go?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, as Michael said, we heard a call out from the ETHStaker community, actually from Superfizz in one of the community calls, to basically build a one-click installer for setting up everything that Michael's creating guides for, that Somer's guides helped you do, for going from nothing to Ethereum to staking. And we have built now a couple different applications that can help automate a lot of that process. So this one's called STAKEHOUSE, and we just released it open source a couple weeks ago. Definitely very much in the early beta stages, but I'll walk you through sort of how it works. Here on the welcome screen, you can sort of see it tells you what it's going to be setting up for you. So this is going to be your ETH1 node, your ETH2 beacon node, and your validator. And under the hood, a big shout out to Rocket Pool. So we actually use Rocket Pool's install infrastructure for this. That's one of the reasons why we were able to build it so quickly. And so it's pretty amazing. I think we might talk about the Rocket Pool staking infrastructure a little bit later, but for now, I'll just jump right in. So first what we do is we run a couple system checks. This is pretty bare bones right now. As I mentioned, still in like the early beta stage for this one-click installer. We want to add more system tests here to check, for example, like, is your hardware performant enough to actually run a node successfully, a few other things. And here under advanced, we're going to support picking more individualized features, but for now it's meant to be very simple install. We'll pick a random ETH1 and ETH2 client for you to run. So that promotes client diversity and healthy networks. So without further ado, I will click install. So I need to type in my password here. And right now, as you can see, it prints out a few log messages of what's going on behind the scenes. And it's actually doing the install for you right now. So everything that you see in Michael's video is happening automatically behind the scenes. And depending on how quick your internet is, I've seen it take as little as 30 seconds up to, I mean, it could take longer. I mean, I think the max I've ever seen it take is like 4 or 5 minutes, mostly downloading stuff here. But as you can see, just like that, install complete, redirecting. And now we have everything up and running. There's a lot of work still to be done here. I'll go through a couple things on this screen. This is basically telling you, so the randomly picked client was Teku. And for ETH2, ETH1 is Geth. You can see you're all online here. This status here for Geth right now is probably going to change to syncing soon once you connect to some more peers and start pulling in the historical data. These statuses, right now it says your validator's online. One of the objectives is to actually have a little bit more granularity in that. So telling how many validators you have. Right now we don't have any validators set up, but the validator application is running. Here are some good resources for you to take a look at. And that's basically the entire install process. It all happened behind the scenes and now you're up and running.
Hey, Colfax, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, what's up?
What systems are supported? YouTube is asking a lot about Windows. What's it built on?
Right now, it is only built for Ubuntu, but we are hoping to launch more operating systems in the future. If you have any experience with porting applications and building them on different platforms, I would love for you to come join. Here, let me bring up the GitHub repo.
And I hope while you're working on that, I want to say a little bit about Steakhouse. We're building the ETHStaker community. We recognized a need for these tools. I put the call out. Colfax actually brought a team together. He's working with Remy and some other people to develop these tools, and it's incredible. So Steakhouse is actually the first tool. Can I tell you can I talk about the bigger plan?
Ship it.
The bigger plan, while Steakhouse was the name of that installer, we actually want to zoom out and make Steakhouse an umbrella department of ETHStaker so that Colfax will organize developers to build tools that support the staking ecosystem, whether that means helping an existing tool incorporate more clients, or whether it means providing things like the single-click installer, or maybe one-off tools that just help validators do better. We're looking for the future of Steakhouse to be a building wing of ETHStaker, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have the right team and the skill for that. And really, if you have any interest, we've even talked about, you don't have to be a developer. If you're willing to learn and write documentation, we want you to feel as welcome in Steakhouse as we hope you feel in ETHStaker. And so I hope I didn't steal too much from you.
No, I was in fact just about to jump into that. So Steakhouse now is becoming much more than just this tool. And as you'll see next, Remy's going to demo a tool that he's also built that is also aimed at lowering the technical bar to staking. And so I'm really excited about that. And that sort of opened my eyes up to the fact that the community doesn't only need a one-click installer. There are many tools that can be built to help lower the technical bar to Ethereum 2 staking, as well as promote the health of the beacon chain and do a lot of different things. So we're trying to sort of build this community to facilitate a lot of that development. And so a few updates. We just decided to launch the community, so we're going to be updating a lot of stuff. We're probably going to be creating a GitHub org for Steakhouse where we can host a lot of these tools. This is the repo for Steakhouse, the one-click installer, which we're going to be renaming. And as you can see here, there's a lot of to-dos here that I've identified for some additional enhancements for this project. And we're also going to be having many other projects that we're going to be spinning up within this umbrella. And to get back to Steakhouse, the one-click installer quickly, I see some questions about validators and things like that. Right now, we do not officially support going through the deposit process, but I'll show you here. So once you're fully synced, you can click deposit here. And what we're going to do in order to actually get your validators up and running is we want to utilize the Launchpad, the Ethereum Launchpad, which was very well put together and very thoughtfully put together to actually deposit your ETH. And you'll go through a similar process of creating your mnemonic and your keys, like Invetica was alluding to, which he was playing with the CLI earlier. And then you can actually import that key store into the Steakhouse one-click installer application. And then you can start running your validator with those keys. But this is not fully built out yet. So this is one of the features that hopefully we'll be able to build out once we have a few more people involved.
the thing people always want to know about this and about this kind of tool, and I know it can be frustrating from the development perspective, but what's the time frame that users can expect to be able to use something like this? Like, let's say, I'm sitting on some Ether and I want to stake, but this looks like the right way for me. How long do I have to wait to use this?
That's a great question. And it's a little hard to answer because it really is not a binary scale. It's kind of like a sliding scale of how mature the technology is and how ready we are to recommend its use, like on mainnet. So right now, explicitly, it's only supported for the testnet. And that's not because it's too difficult to configure for mainnet. It's because this is definitely an early stage tool, and I don't want people to put their real Ether in the tool because we're still working out how to make everything super secure. Eventually, once we build a few more features, we want to get an official audit done to make sure that we have a third party sign off on how the tool works. And then we will release it for more like mainnet use and encourage you to do that. In terms of a timeline, I mean, just ballpark, days, weeks, months, years, I'd say months, probably not weeks, but not years. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Superfizz.
Yeah, that's great. I just know how difficult waiting is, especially when you're trying to be patient. So just at least having a window is very helpful.
Yep. And all this will happen much quicker if more developers jump on and help out. So that's maybe an incentive. If you want to use the tool and you have some skills that can help out, even if you're non-technical, there's plenty of product related things and other things to do. If you're interested in working on this tool, reach out to me on Discord. And I'm sure we'll post a link to the GitHub somewhere. And you can come and join the team and help out. It's all totally open source. STAKEHOUSE, the one-click installer, no fees, just totally a community-driven tool to help the community.
For anyone who's familiar with a Mythical Man Month, Colfax kind of suggested, if we have more help, we can get this done more quickly. If he has more help, he can work on more projects and spread out the effort more widely. So we really, I'm going to be promoting STAKEHOUSE a lot in the next few months because I know that it's one of the most powerful directions for ETHStaker, and that was really solidified by this Gitcoin grant where everyone that could gave to STAKEHOUSE. So we've kind of heard that, and we want to embrace it.
Yep. And so for that STAKEHOUSE community umbrella that we're talking about, we just launched the Discord channel for it. It's going to be on the ETHStaker Discord. If you're not a part of the ETHStaker Discord, run over to the URL invite.gg/ETHStaker, and you'll see one of the channels is called STAKEHOUSE, and just keep an eye out there for more updates on how to get more involved.
And I'd like to make one last shout out. The STAKEHOUSE installer supports all 4 staking clients because it's based on the Rocket Pool installer that supports all 4 staking clients. And the Rocket Pool installer supports all 4 staking clients because our friend JCRTP heard one of my previous kind of like, hey, we need Rocket Pool to support all 4 clients. And he's like, hey, I can do that. So JCRTP spent a couple of weeks hammering away, getting pull requests submitted and approved. And because of his work, because of the ETHStaker community, Rocket Pool now supports all 4 clients, which allowed STAKEHOUSE to easily support all 4 clients. That's a major win because we are promoting client diversity rather than allowing the community to kind of collapse down on 1 or 2 popular clients, which would not be in our best interest.
So that's actually,
and a few other things that, or go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to kind of extend on what Fizz was saying there. And he'd mentioned this in a previous State of the Stake episode where there are a set of questions that we kind of ask ourselves as a community in terms of what's healthy and what's not healthy in relation to the beacon chain. And one of those questions is it open source? And the reason that's important is because it allows the facilitation of these other tools to grow and help mature and push forward the overall ecosystem. If Rocket Pool wasn't open source, we wouldn't have necessarily this product in the shape that it is now, because we'd have to do everything from scratch. So these things allow other people to sort of take the baton and run with it. So something to kind of keep in mind as you maybe looking for solutions to solicit in the ecosystem. One of those questions is to ask if is it's open source. It's a big driver.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. And so I look at Steakhouse, the one-click installer, is standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, it's really a very thin layer of code on top of all of the infrastructure of the actual nodes and clients that are running, and then the Rocket Pool install infrastructure. And now we just basically put a little UI on it and automated a few things. So it's all only possible because all these tools are open source. So a big appreciation to Rocket Pool for all the work that they've done and the fact that it's open source. Steakhouse is also open source, so I encourage you to even build on top of that someday. That would be pretty cool.
And not just Rocket Pool. I don't want to forget Joe. JCRTP has just he has been a real motivator for all of us. He has helped me recognize our potential, and so I'm very appreciative of that.
Seeing all 4 clients being picked by Steakhouse as a result of JCRTP's pull request, adding Nibis and Teku, it never stops making me happy. Teku got selected now. It wouldn't have been possible without JCRTP.
Absolutely.
So I think that just about wraps up this demo. So I'll pass it back to Invetica.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for showcasing this. This is I can't help but smile every time I see it work, because it's just so cool. The amount of just the simplicity of it is awesome. But not to be outdone here, Remy's got his validator wizard here, and it is equally as cool and definitely as important to the ecosystem. Remy, if you want to showcase your tool here.
Sure. Thanks for giving me the talk here. I'm gonna share my screen right now. There you go. All right, so I'm gonna showcase the Validator Wizard, which is just another tool, another one-click installer that you could use eventually to become a validator. So we will be sharing the link to the GitHub repository for the project, but one way to quickly start the wizard is simply to go down here, and we have a simple command line that you can just copy and paste, which I'll do here. I'm just copying this command line here, just pasting here, and then it'll download the wizard, and it'll ask you for your password to get started. And so once you start the validator wizard, you will be shown this nice welcome page where it'll explain what it is and where you can get additional support. Right, we're still part of the ETHStaker community, and so like if you need additional support, if you have any issue with the wizard, you can always refer to people who are gonna help you there. All right, so let's start with the next dialogue here. We're showing an overview of what you will need to get started to become a validator. You'll need 32 ETH for each validator you want to run. You also need like a Net1 client, a Net2 beacon node. You'll need to generate your validator keys. You'll need to import those keys, and then you'll be able to do the deposit afterward. And then eventually you'll have to wait, and then you'll become an active validator. The next dialog here will prompt you to select a network. So you can become a validator for a different network. If you want to become a validator for mainnet, which is where the real value is, you'll be able to select it here. But I'm going to select Permont here just for this showcase. I don't want to use any real value. I just want to demonstrate the use of this wizard. The next step is the ETH1 client installation. Here we're going to install Geth. This wizard only supports Geth right now, but eventually we might be able to add supports for additional ETH1 client. Right, so it'll tell you what it's going to do. It's going to install Geth from the PPA on Ubuntu. So I haven't mentioned this yet, but the wizard only works on Ubuntu for now. But maybe eventually, if we have enough people who wants to contribute or help us develop this tool, maybe we'll be able to support additional operating systems. And so it'll create a systemd service similar to what you can find into Summer's Guide. So let's keep going here. So you can see in the background what it does. It's simply running similar commands that you would see in Summer's Guide, but in this case, it's all automated, right? So all you have to do is look at the log and then wait for it. And so you can see that it's downloading GEF 1.10 right now. And once it's installed and the service is started, it'll show the logs, wait a little until synchronization starts, and it'll test that your node is actually synchronizing, right? So after a few seconds, you'll see a pop-up or a small message showing that you are in sync, you are currently syncing, or that you are not in sync and you should wait a little more to get started, right? So here, I'm saying that GEF has not started syncing yet, so let me just retry this. So my GEF node is still looking for peers, so maybe I'll wait a few seconds before I keep going here. I have not opened any ports to get incoming peers, so maybe this will take a little longer. But what we want to eventually include in this wizard is for you to set up your ports first and test your ports and test to make sure that your ports are open, right? So in order to promote better peering and to improve your ability to sync with others, you should open your ports on your machine, and we can actually test for that. And Colfax already built a tool that we will be using for this wizard eventually. Right, let me retry here. Let's see if I'm getting synced. There you go. You can see that GEF is currently syncing properly, and we have a small information message. So the next step here, we are prompting the user to add ETH1 fallback nodes, right? So it's a good practice to include fallback nodes for any ETH2 validator for their beacon node, because if your local node goes down, if your local get node goes down, it can fall back on any other public node. And that's actually pretty useful if you want to do maintenance or if you need to restart your GEF node. It's pretty useful, right? So what I did is I already created an account on Infura. This is just a test account, so this public endpoint is not going to be working after this workshop, but I'm just going to copy and paste my endpoint here that I created using Infura. But we suggest that you create at least one account with Infura and Alchemy so that you can get at least 2 fallbacks for your node here. So let me add this endpoint here. I'm just gonna paste the link I just copied, and make sure not to reuse this link because it's not gonna be working after this workshop. All right, so when I add this new fallback, the wizard actually tests that the fallback is working, that it's a proper ETH1 public node, and that it's on the right chain, right? So it tested that it was on the Goerli chain. And so once I'm done adding fallback, I can just select done here. And then now I'm being prompted for the Lighthouse installation. Like right now, the wizard only supports Lighthouse. But like I said, with the ETH1 client, we have a goal to support multiple clients for the ETH2 node. But this is simply just to have a minimally working wizard. Right, so this dialog explains that it'll download the official binary from GitHub, verify its PGP signature, and extract it, create the systemd service, just like what you can find into the Summer's Guide. So let's get started. We'll see the log in the background about using the GPG tool to verify the signature, downloading the Lighthouse client, and installing the systemd service. Sometimes it can take a while for the GPG signatures to be downloaded, but here you can see that it worked fine. And just like when we installed Geth, we're giving the beacon node a few seconds to get started and start syncing. Once we're done with the sync process here, we'll actually test that the beacon node is syncing properly. If it's not, it'll show a message and we'll be able to retry the test here. So you can see a bunch of like failure message in the background. Those are mainly because our local node is not in sync yet. So it's actually falling back on the, and you can see the message here about the beacon node syncing properly. We're now up to the step where we'll be generating the keys. So what it's being shown here is that the deposit CI tool will be downloaded. It'll be executed locally, and you have to answer a few questions regarding your validator. It also has a message about you having to securely and privately store your mnemonic. So that's the words that you'll see. So it's just a reminder about that as well. And we have another dialogue about this warning, making sure that if you lose your mnemonic, you might lose your funds. All right, so let's get started with downloading the CLI tool. And we're being asked a few questions. I'm just gonna say that I'll run this for one validator. I'll type a password for the key store. I'll just retype it. And here I'm shown the mnemonic that I have to securely store somewhere. In my case, I'm just gonna copy and paste it, but like in a real world scenario, you'll want to actually write it down and then store it in multiple places, maybe in a safe somewhere if you have one, which is fire protected. So those are all good practices. I'm just gonna retype it here by just pasting it, and then it'll generate the keys in the background. So we'll just have to wait a few seconds. Once we're done with generating the key, it'll import them into the validator client by installing the client as well. So this will just create the service for your validator and import the keys that we just generated. So I have to retype the password that I used when I generated my keys here. It'll check that the keys were properly imported. It'll say that we found one key imported, and it'll give the validator client a few seconds just to make sure that it's working properly while showing your the logs here. So you can see a few error messages in the background because the beacon node is not in sync yet. And one thing I've been thinking about recently is adding a net to beacon node fallback for the validator client using maybe Infura or other services online. So that could be another good things to add to this wizard. All right, so we're now done to the deposit. And so it tells you where you can find your deposit file. And it also tells you where you should be doing your deposit. In this case, since we're using the Permont network, we're being asked to go to this URL here, which is open. And I'm just gonna do the deposit quickly. But in a real world scenario, you'll want to read all the questions and read all the warnings and risk that you incur by being a validator. But I'm just gonna go quickly here to do the deposit. I just want to show you the end. The end result. You're being asked to choose a net1 client, but the wizard already installed one for you, so you can just click continue here. Same with your eth2 client. In my case, I created one validator, so I'm just going to type one here. and I'm being asked to select the deposit file, which is in the temp directory. So let me just find it here. And I'll do the deposit using MetaMask. Hopefully this should work. In my previous try, I've had issues with this step for some reason. And hopefully you won't have any issue with the launchpad, but maybe I'll just restart it here. Let me just go quickly through those steps again. Like I said, you should be very careful when you're doing your actual deposit to make sure you read everything here, because there's a lot of important messages in there that you should be very careful about. All right. Let's see if it works now. There you go. All right, so now I'm being asked to select an account with MetaMask. I have this account which I requested girl at on, which should be fine. And then it found some Goed currency, so I should be good with doing the deposit. I'm still being asked about a few of the risk. And I'm down to the deposit step here. So I just click on send deposit, and hopefully I'll be able to do it with MetaMask here. There you go. So the transaction was started. We'll just wait a few seconds for the deposit to be completed. Normally on the Girly network, it's pretty fast, but if you're doing this on the mainnet, make sure that you select the proper amount for your gas price, because I've just had a person today asking why his deposit was not working, and he might have selected like a low gas price, making his transaction take longer than expected. Let me just click on this beacon chain link to make sure if beacon chain found my validator deposit. Seems like the deposit was not found on beacon chain yet. I'll just refresh this. There you go. You can see that the deposit was found on the beacon chain. And so if I go back to the wizard here, when I click I'm done, it'll check on beacon chain to make sure that the deposit was actually done. I'll test it. I'll find that the deposit was done, and it'll show you that the installation was completed, right? So it also gives you additional pointers for support, or if you need, if you have any questions, and where to monitor your activation period for your validator. You can go on this URL here. And that's pretty much it. When you click on quit, it'll show you the public key for your validator here and give you additional information about your validator. So that's pretty much it for the wizard here. So that's the whole process. So you can see where we're going with this validator wizard.
It's so great. Yeah, it just definitely simplifies the process, especially for those that don't necessarily want to run all the commands or are worried about making a mistake. I think the two of my favorite features on this is one that it reminds me, I have a lot of nostalgia watching this wizard because it reminds me of like Windows 3.1. Kind of has like same design aspects, which I love.
Same vibe, right?
Yeah. But it also, I really love the feature where it's further promoting decentralization by default spinning up the ETH1 node. But then I love that you're adding the fallback. So it's not reliant solely on a third-party service. It's just using them as a safeguard. And I think that's a great way to go about it.
Yep.